welcome to another episode of the Destiny Truthcast. This is episode 35. I am Lost Souls, and happy to have RedWingGirl back with us today. We missed you on last week's episode, RedWingGirl. Hope you had a wonderful birthday, and glad to have you back today.
Thank you. 1 year older. I'm not bragging.
And infinitely wiser, though, right?
No, I don't think so, but I'll try.
Well, again, it's really good having you back. We missed you last week. We have two new forum guests with us here today. We've got Durandal and Synge1080. How are you doing today, fellows?
Doing good. Interesting to be here.
Doing great, man. I'm kind of excited to finally get to do this podcast with you.
Glad to have you both here, and something we like to do, just let the guests tell the community a little bit about themselves, so the community can kind of hear about the people behind the names they see on the forums. So, Durandal, if you just would tell the community a little about you.
All right, well, I'll admit that I've been gaming way too long. My call sign is actually a little bit of a reflection of that, if anybody's familiar with Bungie's past, and I guess the most interesting thing I'm willing to talk about myself is I game for Extra Life, and I regularly go through all the recruiting processes and stuff like that as the vice president of my local guild. So, yay, join Extra Life, people. Come on.
Well, I know RedWingGirl does that as well.
Yeah, I do that. So where do you live? Do you live in the United States?
Yes, I live in Michigan.
Hey, right on. Awesome. Where in Michigan do you live?
I live in the Lansing area, so I'm actually the vice president for the Sparrow Hospital Guild.
Oh, that's great. That is really cool.
And Synge, if you could let the community know a little bit about yourself.
All right. Well, I'm a little weirded out already because I also live in Michigan. I live in the Battle Creek area.
Well, was this planned? Did we, is it a Michigander episode today? I think that might be the name of the episode.
I guess so. I'm not sure how this coincidence happened, but probably a conspiracy. But, all right. My real name, and I'm not kidding you, this is the truth, is Braulio. I work at my local VA hospital, and I too have been gaming for far too long. I think in Destiny alone, I've got like 43 days clocked in. And then after gaming, I guess my next obsession is music. Play guitar, trumpet, and piano. Playing 3 bands. And I hope I don't suck.
What kind of music do you play?
Oh, mostly the most prominent band is a jazz band. Kind of took after another group called Snarky Puppy. They really inspired us over the years, those most recent years, to really get a little bit more creative with our music and not just kind of play your average contemporary jazz.
That's very cool. I like having musicians on. I've been playing music for 20-some years, play guitar as well, so that's very cool. And love the All Michigan episode. This is going to be fun. So we have a lot to discuss today. One of the first things I want to talk about, we actually, a couple episodes ago, discussed a little bit about reforging, but not so much weapon reforging, but on the armor side, and being able to reroll our armor and the stats and whatnot. And so part of that discussion kind of rolled into a little bit on tier 12. And so the last week or so, RedWingGirl, I know you've kind of been looking at your sets and just trying to see what it would take to get to tier 12. And it was really an eye-opening experience for us this last week and how involved this process is. And I'll let you get us started just on what that's entailed for you.
Oh, that's right. So, like everyone who is involved in collecting or, has a full vault, my biggest thing is that I do try to collect some of the armor sets, and I never really paid attention to the tier levels. The most that I actually really paid attention to is that I really liked a lot of intellect and discipline, and I didn't really care so much about strength because in PvP, for example, I don't really like to put myself in too much close quarter contacts. I'm not really into the melee. I've never been able to pull off melee shotgun or any of that kind of stuff because, quite frankly, I'm really not that great in PvP. But besides the fact I just never really did that kind of gameplay. So I was mostly focused on grenades, supers, things of that sort. But then, as things started to slow down in Destiny, I've been sort of focusing in a little bit more about the tiered levels. So I was looking at some of my sets, and I've been trying to build queen sets on all 3 characters. And then I started to pay attention to the tiered part, and it just got to the point where, for me, it was impossible to get past 11. Like, I can get 11 on most of my sets. Some of them I can't. But then I started to think of, like, well, how am I going to get to 12? Like, I would get sort of close, but not really. So then we went to this website, which I don't recall what the name of it is. Souls, what was the name of this website that we went to?
The Destiny Item Manager.
Right. So it gives you the percentages of each piece of armor and the potential of it getting to tier 12 with any combination of different armor pieces that you have. Well, I looked at all of my armor that I had in my full vault and my full characters, and none of it will ever get me to tier 12, which immediately got me to be very annoyed. And it started with a Friday morning. I got up early, I jumped onto Destiny, and I spent about 3 hours doing glass needles on exotics, trying to readjust all of my perks on all of my armor and trying to get to something where I could figure out a way to get to 12. I had a calculator in my hand. I'm like looking at all the combinations. I have this Destiny item manager thing up. I'm doing all of this stuff, and it's like, what in the world? Why is this so complicated to get such a high tier levels? Then you have to start worrying about, well, what is it that you want on that piece of armor to do? Do you want do you use auto rifles all the time? Well, if you have a piece of, arms or something like that, or your chest piece, has perks for that, then that's great. Do you use a striker or an arc ability or, void ability? Then it starts to get really specific, and some of the pieces that I have do things that I could care less about because I don't even use those weapons. So then it just becomes, it's almost an impossibility, in my opinion, to try to get the tier 12 with the actual kind of rolls on each individual piece of armor that you want to use for whatever reason, PvP or PvE, and I don't understand why it has to be so complicated. I was really frustrated with it by Friday because I had been trying to build armor for a long time, and I did see a post on the board about some person there was able to figure out to get themselves to tier 12 through Dusty Engrams, through Shacks, and they were able to just go through and get armor over and over and over and over and try to get their build, and that's really, if that's really what it takes. I mean, trying to wait for a drop like for Queen's armor that you might get maybe once or twice a week, it's just a long process. So I'm a little disappointed that if you really want to pay attention to the best possible loadouts, getting to that is really difficult. And we concluded that every piece of armor that you get, if you get a legendary or an exotic, you'd actually have to go to this item manager, have it evaluated to see how it could potentially fit into your armory. And there's no way I'm going to ever do that. So I just think it's really complicated, and I hope that they come up with an easier way in D2.
So let me ask you, Durandal and Synge1080, are either of you into gear setups, or have you been at any point in the lifespan of Destiny where you try to achieve a tier, either that or build sets to specifications for PvP or PvE play based on like weapon reloading or ammo or whatever?
Yeah, and I am so bad that I actually have memorized most of the base stats you need in order to hit a tier 12/13 character. I mean, it's it's bad. Like RedWingGirl, me and a lot of my friends, we mainly played for getting perks on our armor first. You know, the whatever weapon type loader, the extra ammo. Do we want super energy from melees or grenades, stuff like that? And only up until the past, I want to say 2 months, we really started looking for the tier 12 stuff, and we use Destiny Item Manager as well. And that's where, like, we'll be in our party chats all together, and we'll just ask each other, what's the max stats for chess pieces? Well, you want a base stat of 61. No matter what they are, you want it to be 61. And that's a 100% chess piece. And we found there's really two places to really get those builds. One is Iron Banner. The gear Aphrodite sells, she'll sell one piece that's 100% and one piece that's like 99 or 98% every time so far. And the other is your Crucible and Vanguard reward packages. Those have a really high chance over anything else we've seen to get, at least a 95% roll on the stats, if not higher.
Well, that's very interesting to hear you say that, because I know that there are a lot of people that are on the forums and play this game that are always talking about PvP being favored over PvE, and to hear you say that the best way to achieve tier 12 is through Iron Banner and through Crucible packages is kind of funny to me, because again, it's a little punishing on the PvE side, it seems, from what you're saying.
It seems like that. But we also haven't been grinding, Dead Orbit or our faction packages either. We've just noticed that, like your average Vanguard package, though, from from Zavala or Ikora or Cade, also has a high chance. I haven't checked the Queen's Guard or anything else.
Well, I can tell you from looking at RedWingGirl's gear and my gear the other day, as we were both on Destiny Item Manager, that the Queen's gear has a very low percentage, because we didn't have anything that was really, I don't think, above like a 95% on any of that gear, did we, RedWingGirl?
No, in fact, of all of the helmets that I have right now on all three of my characters, I only have one helmet on my Titan that actually has the potential, is actually rated at 97%. And that was really disheartening, because, I don't really use exotics that much. I mean, I have a couple exotics that I always use, and then some that I have that I use as fusion fuel, infusion fuel. And that actual exotic helmet that I had was actually, I was just holding it for infusion fuel. It's actually for a striker. It's the inmost helm or whatever, and I never use it. And I'm just thinking, it's like, why in the world, is it? It's like all of my armor is in really, really bad shape, and I've noticed that I've been getting a lot of armor with strength on it, and for me, I don't. Like I said, I don't really use strength, but then I started to just submit to it. I'm like, okay, so can I get to 11 with sort of like a even kind of, lineup? And I just think it's just, if you're really interested in building your perfect loadout, and, you can wear mix match pieces, and you can do, like a friend of mine does that. He has got to have the ugliest characters ever, but he has very specific pieces that he wears on purpose to get the best benefit when he's in PvP, and he's a really good PvP player. So I understand where his motivation is. My motivation is that I like to wear sets. I actually like to be able to combine sets, and I keep several pieces if I really like a set for different reasons. If I use a hand cannon, or if I use pulse rifles or fusions, I have like different sets that I use, but I just can't believe how complicated and how, RNG is really, really tough on these pieces. I mean, if you think it's bad enough to try to get a set, try to get one that actually works together is really, it's really tough.
And what about you, Synge? Are you into the gear and gear setup at all?
I try not to get too heavy into matching a gear set for me, because like you guys have stated, it just takes way too long. That being said, I have been blessed in classic Destiny fashion with one set of tier 12. However, it is nothing like how I would want it to be. It's a strength, discipline, stat cap, and intellect's the minor. So it's got like auto rifle reloader. I wouldn't like that. The helmet's got infusion, which isn't bad. And then unfortunately, it also all looks ugly together. So that's probably my biggest problem. I kind of go for a specific combination of gear sets to kind of satisfy a stylistic look while also trying to be, functional. And it just doesn't really work. Most of my stuff sits around tier 10, tier 11, but classic Destiny.
Well, and it's exactly it. You're wearing gear that'll get you to tier 12, but it's not with the stats that you want. It's not with the reloader perks or ammo perks that you want, and it's not what you want to wear. And it's very very interesting how this all, it just seems so thrown together and so just, I don't know. I can't imagine that it was their intent to have such a convoluted system when they set out. I know in year one of Destiny, when we had, very limited amount of gear sets that we would wear, didn't have all the variety we do now, I was very into getting the perk setups with the right ammo, the right reload speed for the weapons I was using, and you could do it with the gear that you wanted because of the limited amount of gear that we had. In year two, I know that I would get my Titan set up with the armor boost for wearing arc armor boost for arc subclass that would let me survive shoulder charge when shoulder charge was all the rage, and you could live through a shoulder charge. But in year three, with the influx, it's on the one hand, it's really cool that we've had such an influx of gear. We've got the Archon Forge set, we've got the Queen set, we've got, the Raid set, the Dusty Engrams have given us all these different Iron Banner sets that we can put together. There's just so much variety, and we were talking about this on a previous podcast. It was one of my favorite things, is the variety of the gear that we're able to wear now and how unique we can look. But until, I just given up, personally, just looking at stats on stuff because there's so much. But I didn't realize how punishing the system is until RedWingGirl, again, tried to achieve tier 12. And to have to wear such a hodgepodge, I went in the Destiny Item Manager too, and I could put together one tier 12 set across 3 of my characters, and it was on my hunter. And it was just ridiculous, the gear it was having me put on. Nothing matched together. It was just an exotic arms I would never use. It was just terrible. And I don't know. I think that's a system that needs to be completely overhauled for Destiny 2. I do not want to see the system that we have in place remotely in any fashion in this game come the next release. And I'm not sure everyone feels the same, but I would hope that everyone would like to see the system overhauled. And I don't think that just a reforging would be a fix at this point because it's so convoluted and so broken to me.
Oh, part of the issue is it's really hard to call it broken because this follows how a lot of MMOs handle diversity when it comes to things that give you perks and bonuses and buffs and things like that. Diablo, oh my god. You can play for years and never get a set that's actually matched, but you can have all the perks you want, or you can find a set that goes together, but then your character build just does not work. This is something that's, I think, just built into MMOs with the huge variety of things you can get.
I look at Destiny more like World of Warcraft-ish, though, and to me, I can see that with the random drops, but the fact that they have these very specific sets that are available to us by just grinding the Queen to get the Queen's gear, by just running the Archon Forge to get the Archon Forge gear, to have that, but then have it where it's so difficult to, within that, get the gear to drop, not only at percentages and perk numbers that will get you to tier 12, but then to have the right reloader or the right whatever on it. It's just an extra layer of punishment that I don't think needs to be in this game. So, I mean, I understand the grind, and we enjoy grinding for the gear, but, I mean, at some point there needs to be a payoff. And I think that's where I think a lot of Destiny has suffered, is that there just hasn't been payoff to the grind enough of the time. Kind of like with the Queen's gear now. You know, it's nice that they gave us the ability to have the daily bounties and to, you know, not spend 3 weeks trying to rank up, but, you know, then you rank up to 3,000 and you get the double drop on the class item, and it's kind of like, well, what the fuck did I just do for the last, you know, day or two? So I think that in Destiny 2, I don't mind the grind. I've said it before, like the sword quests. I mean, I know that was brutal for a lot of people, spending all the hours grinding the materials and doing everything you had to do to get the exotic swords. But the payoff to me was in every way possible worth that grind, and it made it such a rewarding experience. And I look back as one of the most fun things that I've done in this game is when RedWingGirl and I did those sword quests. But yeah, in Destiny 2, I just think they need to find more of that balance of making the payoff worth the grind.
Well, they could offer, like with the weapon packages, you have 3 options of how you want that weapon, you know, how you're going to get that weapon. You know, there's different perks on all 3 of them. They could at least offer an option of, you know, 3 different options of armor to drop, and you pick it. You know, I mean, they could do a number of things.
I really like that, kind of like the Gunsmith does with the arm state packages, where you choose the 3 different versions of the gun.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's actually a very good idea.
I think that would be nice, and I was kind of hoping that sometime in this life cycle, it'll probably never happen, that they would allow re-rolling, not like it used to be, but more along the lines of what's going on in the Division right now, where you can you know, re-roll one stat, you know, be a perk or, you know, one of the stats pertaining to your intellect, discipline, or strength, and then once you re-roll it, you can only re-roll that slot again. You can re-roll it every single time with a higher cost each time, and that way, like, because, you know, like RedWingGirl was saying, she's got some sets that, like, you know, some pieces that get you like 90% of the way there, 95% of the way there, something like that, and you really just need to just push it that little bit farther just to get, you know, closer to tier 12. And I think that's where a lot of people sit at. They sit pretty close to tier 12 stats. They just gotta, you know, fine-tune it a little bit. And I think having selective re-rolls would be pretty nice.
Well, I actually like what you just said there about the progressive cost of the re-roll. And I think that when they announced Infusion, I'm not sure what everyone thought it was going to be. I kind of, when they first announced they were going to do Infusion, what would happen was we'd be able to take a piece of gear and infuse it into, you know, the new piece, and what that would let us do would be to take a perk or a stat off of it and put it onto the new piece, which I think would be another thing that would be something that would be cool to help us build these sets. You know, you've got the chest piece that you want, but it's got the auto rifle reloader. You know, another one drops that's got, you use pulse rifles, it's got pulse rifle reloader. You can infuse it into it, and you can pull that pulse rifle reloader perk off of it and put it on your gear. Again, I think kind of like where the reforging went sour with House of Wolves, because I think it was just too easy to do. The cost was too low. I think if you build in the cost to it and make it where it's not just something you can just blink an eye and reforge stuff and get what you want. Make it where there is a cost to it, and you have to decide. And again, your progressive cost idea I like a lot, where make it more expensive each time you would re-roll the same node. I think that's a very interesting idea.
Yeah, they would have to implement progressive cost, though, because as the state of the game right now, it's just way too easy to get armor materials, weapon materials, motes of light, everything. You can buy the planetary materials. You can buy motes of light. Everything's available at a vendor somewhere. So if they reintroduce it like they did the first time, it's just going to be a mess. Everyone's going to be running, I enjoy min-maxing, okay? That's part of an RPG, just kind of min-maxing your build and trying to get that setup that you like. But when it becomes so easy and it ends up being that there's very specific routes that people take, and everyone just kind of follows suit into the same play style, it stops being fun.
Well, let me ask this of everyone. Looking at the system that we have now and looking forward to Destiny 2 when it releases, what would you like to see in place for how gear operates? What would you like to see different? What do you like about what we have now?
Well, I know that there's a lot of talk about resetting us in the next D2, and we can transition into the conspiracy theories about what's ahead. But I really don't want to lose any of the supers that we have now. I'm hoping that we'll gain new ones, but always be able to keep the existing ones that we have now. I don't know if that's possible, but I hope that's going to be something that they're going to consider, because I think, the more that we have, the more diverse gameplay we'll see. So, I don't want to lose anything. I keep saying, people want to restart, and they want to start over and just scrap everything, and I really don't want to do that. I don't want to lose armor. I don't want to lose my supers or my abilities. I want to be able to keep everything for what I thought was the overall 10-year project. I want to build on what I already have. I don't want to just lose everything and start over, but that's just me. I know a lot of people do want to start over.
Do you like the general overall system that we have with the gear and the stat setup now, rolling the intellect, discipline, strength, the perks that we have with the reloaders and all that? Is that something you like going forward in Destiny 2, or do you think that things need to be reworked on that front?
Well, the ranking system on gear is so much easier than it was in year one. The trees on guns alone between this time and previously is so much easier to rank up. So I want it to be manageable, but it should be you should have a little bit more options in the RNG. Like just dumping a bunch of stuff on us, I guess, is one way to give us more options. But it would be nice if each one of those options, especially on important gear like raid gear, although you can re-roll raid gear, but just have a real opportunity to have options for each piece that drops. For all gear, I think would be really good in D2. I hope that they have re-rolling as a standard way to use your guns and your armor going forward in D2. I hope they come up with a really creative idea of doing it.
I agree in some ways, and I like the current setup for how things are measured out. I think the biggest thing that needs to change is they got to really revamp the perks system itself. There's just too many perks that once you have it, the gun's either really good or the gun's immediately gone. It's automatically a shard or infusion material. I think while there's a diversity of perks, there's not enough of them that are useful.
So you're not grinding for Icarus on that scout rifle, I'm taking it?
On a hand cannon? Sure.
And what about you, Synge?
I think I would like to see, like you said, perks need to be a little bit more useful, and I think they need to kind of embrace more of their. This game's so heavy on first-person shooter, and they kind of just, when they originally sold it, they were like, oh, it's like a mini MMO with RPG elements, and I don't think they embraced that enough to really sell that point. And I think if they did, then we might see more interesting perks. Like you got ability on cooldown. You're this much faster with these boots, or something like that. And then I think I would also like to see vendor stock change like weekly, because that would open up a whole new avenue of checking in every week, searching the vendors, see if anybody's got anything good, anything new. And I think that would just some regular improvement to quality of life.
Well, we've only been asking for the rotating vendor stock since week 1, so I'm sure that's going to be something that's implemented any day now. The topic, or the point you brought up, RedWingGirl, about Destiny 2, and Synge, as you were talking Destiny 2 there, we will transition into that. And something that came out, and this is purely speculation, whether it's real, whether it's bullshit, it doesn't really matter, because anything regarding Destiny 2 at this point is speculation until Bungie comes out and gives us any definitive information. But there was a post on Reddit that Paul Tassi did an article on Forbes, and just had a bunch of, it was a supposed leak from someone that knew someone at Bungie. And again, whether or not any of this information is true, whether it's made up, again, it doesn't really matter overall, but I just wanted to get kind of everyone's opinions on if these things were something that were coming in Destiny 2. Would it be something that we think we'd want to see going forward, or would be a mistake? But just thoughts on each of these. And so the first thing on the speculated rumors was, they are not completely rebooting our characters. My source described it as a clean state, but not a full wipe. Apparently our Guardian will still retain their memories, accomplishments, etc. up to this point, but we will not have any carryover gear, weapons, items.
I'm all for that. I think that the game, the way it is right now, has become so bogged down in certain things need to be had, certain things are junk. We really need a fresh set. We need new perks. Existing perks maybe need to be reworked or taken away. Things need to be different.
Yeah, something fresh. I like that they're gonna try to Metroid it, end your last game with all your abilities and gears and weapons, and then new game you just get knocked back down to level 1. I thought it would be kind of nice if they ported over some kind of nostalgia items to kind of keep long-term players a little bit more invested in their current characters. But yeah, I think overall a fresh start would be pretty nice. Not getting killed by the same weapons and abilities for 3 years in a row now. So I think going forward, if they're going to make this a sustainable 10-year plan, then they have to freshen it up quite a bit.
Right, but I think the reason why they would be driven to do something like that is because importing everyone's stock and character into a new engine would probably be pretty complicated. I mean, it was pretty complicated when we went from level 34 to 300. So, I understand that, it's probably easier for them to just import people's Grimoire scores over and, their gamer tags or whatever. And in the simplest form, it's probably easy for them to do that. But for me, for the amount of silver that I've purchased and weapon sets and armor sets, that does not appeal to me. I mean, I'm still of the mind that this is supposed to be something that we're supposed to be building over the course of 10 years, and I'm not too keen on saying goodbye to to product that I feel that I purchase for a character that I feel is supposed to just be DLC for the life of 10 years, because basically that's what it's always been. And so I'm not looking forward to it. I disagree with it. I feel like, they should be able to come up with a better way, either create kiosks for previous purchases that are somehow, we can retrieve if they decide to reset us. But to simply just lose it all is I'm not on board for that at all. I really am not. I mean, guns are one thing. There are a lot of guns that I have that I want to keep, that I don't want to see lose, that were really hard to get. Not a lot of people have them. I don't want to lose those guns, but I guess if that has to happen, that has to happen. But I'm just not. I'm not for it. I'm against it, and I know that I'm in the minority on it. But I do not want to lose everything that I've gained.
Well, and here's I think, something interesting that you just brought up there with the weapons, and it's something I hadn't really thought about before, but comparing, say, Destiny to a World of Warcraft, and as Durandal and Synge, you were talking about, your thoughts on this. World of Warcraft, you particularly, like, say, with the characters and starting over, and this goes to the next rumor, which I'll read that real quick, and again, bullshit or not, it says there will be 3 new subclasses from the jump. The existing classes will be fully reworked, including new abilities, perks, visual effects, which, I could see that as something that they would do. Obviously they're working with a new engine, so reworking the visuals and for the existing, like, supers or whatever, existing abilities, reworking perks, that makes sense. 3 new subclasses also makes sense to me, because that's kind of in line with World of Warcraft when they come out with an expansion. I mean, if you were a hunter, in vanilla WoW, you can still be a hunter today. You haven't lost that. They've been reworked throughout the decade plus that game's been out, but you're still playing those classes. You're still on your same characters, which, again, I see that as kind of an avenue, RedWingGirl, that you're talking about, where we could and should be able to progress our characters. I know a lot of people want the reset, but then also there's the look and keeping our gear that, again, you've invested silver in a lot in this game. I know there's a lot that you don't want to lose there. But, one of the other rumors, they're implementing some kind of transmogrification feature to where if players wanted and they did have their year 1 gear, you could put that look onto an existing year 2 piece. Where I think it becomes complicated, though, going to what you just said, RedWingGirl, is with the weapons. I think that's where it kind of is new territory. I don't think the armor, again, because of transmog, because we're constantly grinding for new sets, I don't think that's really a big deal, and I don't think it would be difficult for them to put that transmog in. But where Destiny differs from, say, World of Warcraft is that in World of Warcraft, the weapons are just stat sticks. You'll new expansion will come out, you had whatever that you loved, but it was again just an aesthetic, because you're looking at just the numbers, the discipline or whatever, strength, those stats on something. So it was just a stat stick. The thing with Destiny and their weapons is that it's not a stat stick. It's a weapon that you go and you're playing first person and you're shooting this gun, and they each have a different feel, very, very unique, specific feels that you're either comfortable with and you love or you hate. And when you get comfortable with a weapon, its rate of fire, you know its range. It really has a huge effect on how you play this game. And so I think, like I said, I think that's very different with the weapons going into Destiny 2. And just the fact that, so many year 1 weapons weren't carried over. I know people want the year 1 gear back, and I think it's because it had a feel to the weapons that just isn't there for a lot of the year 2 gear.
Right. But I'm not interested in going into D2 and have a large percent of my new gameplay re-ranking my striker, right? I mean, if what we're talking about is resetting from 0, that's to me is something I have already done. I'm not interested in redoing it. I'm all for 3 new class, supers and going through that, and the storyline that we got with our 3rd super was great. And then we had the opportunity to rank it up and play around with it on all 3 different classes. But if I'm going to go into D2 and I'm just going to go re-rank up all of my previous 3 supers and then plus 3 new supers, that just extends the playtime, 50% of which I've already done. I'm not interested in that. So I really hope that whatever they're importing into D2 of our existing character doesn't mean that my new game that I've had to purchase is going to be redoing what I've already redone. The guns. Their weapons, who knows? With all the controversy about buffing and nerfing and everything else, they may come out with basic weapons that don't perform as they do before. They completely eliminated re-rolling. It may just be that every gun drops with all the same stats, and they may not have the different, options for doing things. I don't really know. Who knows what's going on? But in terms of the characters themselves, I am not interested in restarting things that I've already done. I don't want D2 to be regrinding all of the stuff that we already had. I really am not interested in that.
Well, I don't know that we're necessarily going to be regrinding everything, but you also have to look at how, let's take this rumor on this article as somewhat plausible. You have to look at if they're reworking existing subclasses, in different ways. We might have completely different supers. The gunslinger may not be firing a gun anymore. He may have something different. At that point, having to upgrade that subclass again, I don't see as an issue. But yeah, if they keep everything the same as far as existing subclasses, yeah, that should just carry over. The completed content should carry over like that. But it's once again, if we take the rumor with any grain of salt, it's like, if they're reworking subclasses, if they're changing perks on them so drastically, we should have to re-earn it so that we get to understand the new subclasses.
Yeah, I can understand how we're investing 3 years here already, so I can understand how it would leave a bad taste in your mouth to have to just basically redo everything. It's basically just saying well, we're deleting your characters and you have to start a new one. But I think at the same time, I think Durandal's got the point there. It's just it's for Destiny or for Bungie. They see it as 2 problems: how to reinvigorate, players' interest and their time investment, and also how to increase, the gameplay time. You have to they're a business, and their business is making games, and they want you to play their games. They want you to play it for a long time. So I could easily see them, revamping the subclasses and making you level them up again. I would be kind of annoyed. I'm hoping that they revamp them enough to where they really do feel a lot fresher. I really hope that they make them more utilitarian and less, I'll throw this grenade and this does damage, and these are different types of ways you can apply damage, and it's just not as interesting as it could be. And I think I'm hoping that they're planning on really just totally revamping the whole system and focusing a little bit more on utilities than just straight damage dealing, subclasses. And like you said, with the silver items, things you purchased, I have also dropped a good chunk of change in Eververse, and I kind of fully expected them to make that stuff intrinsic to the Destiny universe. I was kind of expecting them to make it, just aesthetic and just for now, make your Guardian look this way in Destiny 1 and then Destiny 2, that those items are going to be irrelevant and probably not even ported over. But yeah, I can't realistically see them saying, here's your 3 new subclasses, you know nothing about them, but we're gonna just let you have them fully ranked and able to kind of like experiment right off the bat with them. I can't see that happening.
Well, if anyone thinks that by losing pieces that you've bought right now, if you're going to lose that, if anybody thinks that anybody's going to go in and spend more silver after that, they're crazy. I will refuse to go in and spend any money if I know that it's just going to be taken away from me. I mean, it's a buzzkill. There's no way I'm not going to invest in that anymore if I don't think I'm going to be able to keep it. It's going to be, especially if I know this is going to be the same character. If they just said, okay, Destiny, after Destiny dies, your Guardian dies, you're done. That's it. Destiny 2 is going to bring a new Guardian, and you're going to become that new Guardian, and these are going to be your new supers and your new whatever, and it's going to be a completely different story, and it's a whole new Destiny experience. Maybe it's 500 years from now or something. Maybe we're going to play like Halo Reach was. We played, before. The Halo, the original Halo, I think it was like the very beginning of prior to Master Chief. If it's going to be like that, then okay, I'm on board for it. But if I'm going to play the same dude and I'm going to lose everything that I've gained, I completely disagree with it.
Yeah, that I think that's a very very fair line to draw there. If we're keeping the same characters, to again, as you say, lose everything you've invested in it is a lot different than if it is a complete hard reset. I want to ask this of everyone in regards to the possible new abilities. One of the things that was rumored, and again, could be bullshit, could not be, was that powers of darkness will be introduced into gameplay. So their source didn't elaborate on it. I take that as, we're getting some of the abilities that we see, like Taken or Hive or whatever have. Is that something that each of you think would be interesting to gameplay, or you'd rather not see incorporating enemy abilities into our Guardians' repertoires?
Absolutely. We've already got a few instances where, lore-wise anyway, that Guardians have been corrupted, can be corrupted. Eris Morn is our most upfront example of that. But I don't know so much if it'll be, say, a darkness subclass, so much as it would be just taking, some of the core abilities of, revamping darkness abilities into, what they'll probably try to sell as light abilities. I could see them doing like a Hive Knight shield, like when he puts up the black barrier. How cool would it be if a Guardian could do that? Like a light version of that. I think they'd probably do something more along those lines than they would, say like a fully corrupted Guardian. You're dabbling in the darkness and all that. But yeah, I would thoroughly enjoy having kind of like a rogue Guardian, somewhat akin to Toland and Osiris.
I mean, we already know there's survivors other than Guardians. We've run into the Stranger, we've run into Zur, Agent of Nine. There might be something to this rumor, but I don't know if it's necessarily we're taking power from the darkness. We just might be taking power or abilities from not the Traveler. And that's simply what this person could be interpreting to be powers from the darkness.
I think that I'd rather see, if we had new classes, subclasses, that it be something completely new and different rather than taking abilities from enemies and giving us darkness-based subclasses. That's kind of where I'm at on that. Another thing in this article that was a comment, and this one I think I would like to hear your take on this, particularly RedWingGirl. Raids will be bigger, longer, and much more interesting in terms of mechanics moving forward. And before we go into that, Paul Tassi responded to this. Well, this is the exact opposite of Bungie's recent raid philosophy, making raids shorter and less mechanically difficult. So I really doubt they're going to take the ball and run the other direction, with everyone really liking Wrath of the Machine. So, RedWingGirl, your thoughts on that and raids going forward into D2?
Well, I think they heard everyone's complaints when people said that they didn't have 6 to 10 hours to complete King's Fall, and that it was difficult for the average gamer who had families and jobs to dedicate that kind of time to doing a raid. And so I think their response to that was the latest raid, which, if you know exactly what you're doing, can take like an hour and a half or something. But I happen to agree. I don't think that the raids should be overly complicated and lengthy in time, because it just builds frustration, especially if you're already having difficulties in one area and it's already taking you a long time to get through that area. And nobody wants a bullet sponge raid. I mean, I think I would trade mechanics over bullet sponges anytime. I don't want to have like these epic battles that take hours and hours and hours of planning and whatever else it would take. But I don't think that, based on their recent history, that they're going to go to lengthy raids unless they have two different types of raids. One raid maybe would be a little bit shorter. You would still be able to get high level gear out of it, but maybe not the best gear from it. And maybe they're going to offer other raids that are much more complicated and lengthy, and that will be really for the people that have the time to dedicate to it. And then that would offer some of the best gear. But then you're going to have a divide in the community who will fall back on the same complaint about not being able to have the time to do these lengthy raids. So I just don't see them going that way. But maybe they will. Maybe they've decided that now that they've come out with the shorter raid, that they actually prefer having the longer raids.
As someone coming from a point of where I've been playing Destiny since it's been available to Xbox players, I joined in the beta and I've been playing since day one. And I have to say that my number one gaming experience has got to be the night Vault of Glass first opened. I was up at 4 in the morning on the East Coast waiting, just waiting with a fire team ready to go in. And we spent, luckily at this point in time, I didn't have to work the next day, but I think our time clocked in at 9 hours, and that was one heck of an experience for me. And I don't want to say that mechanically these raids should take long periods of time. I think they have the right idea, making raids less mechanically daunting than King's Fall. But I also want that first time experience. If you're one of those players that logs in the night a raid goes live or the day a raid goes live, and you're learning everything for the first time, I do want it to be challenging. I do want it to be a time investment, because that's really a feat. Being the first guy or one of the first people to defeat Atheon or defeat Crota, Oryx, or the bosses in the new raid. And there's a attractiveness to that. Players want to be legendary. They want to become legend. That's slogan of Destiny. But yeah, I think they're going to try to strike a balance between those two parties, because that's really who they're trying to cater towards. They're trying to cater towards players that once the mechanics are learned, the raid's not going to be super long and super heavy. But learning it that first time, I want it to be challenging and interesting.
Yeah, I really hope for a longer raid, or at least something that's more challenging. I mean, King's Fall is like a 40-minute raid once you got past knowing how to do things and actually having a team you can work with. I mean, I think the best we did it in was like 38, 37 minutes, because we just, at some point, it was all motor memory. And that's, I understand some people don't have hours and hours and hours to do it, but that's also why you have a week in which to do things. I would love to see a raid that could take 2 to 3 gaming sessions to do, just because there's puzzles, there's things to figure out, or there's what I would love to see, multiple paths. Not every raid is the same raid.
Does anyone remember how long it took the first team who got world first on Vault of Glass to beat it? Was it like
10
14
hours.
Or something?
10 hours.
14 hours, I thought.
I thought it was 10. But yeah, it was a long time. All day.
Yeah, it might be 10 hours. I just know it was, double-digit hours. But that's, first time. I mean, with probably little or no help.
Well, here's the thing, and I thought it was funny, Synge, when you said you named Atheon, you named Crota, you named Oryx, and then you said, or the bosses in the new raid. I thought that was very telling. I don't know, but
oh, absolutely.
Does as we sit here, the Rise of Iron released in September, so as we sit here, 4 months later. Is anyone as enamored with Wrath of the Machine as you were 4 months into Vault of Glass or 4 months into King's Fall?
Not even a little bit. Not even a little bit. Like don't get me wrong, I still know their names. Axis is the final boss, but it's just, I love how chaotic that raid is, and I think they really did nail their design goal of making it feel like you were just crashing into things 100% of the time. Because it felt hectic. It felt, it kind of had like a stress about it. But I think they kind of lost out on the mystery, like Vault of Glass. Everyone remembers the first time, they encountered the Templar, or the first time they made that jump into the Gorgon's Labyrinth. And, and let's be honest here, saying that, just remembering, that first night I jumped into the Gorgon's Labyrinth, that kind of sounds pretty badass, and encountering this enemy that, it's not smart to try to kill him. Just try to avoid him, this impossible feat of, it's not impossible, but challenging feat of trying to destroy something that's just so powerful, and, you don't really understand what the Vault of Glass is. I think they need to really reinvigorate that sense of mystery when you go into a raid, that sense of discovery.
What about you, RedWingGirl? 4 months in, are you as enamored with Wrath of the Machine as you were with King's Fall or Vault of Glass?
I don't play the raid anymore because I think it's a really poorly designed raid. I don't like it. There's nothing about it. I know that people have said they like the openness of it, and they like the ability to be able to use different weapons, and they're not tied down to the mechanics of King's Fall, and it allows more freedom. And I think of it just as the opposite. It's just a bullet sponge. You're confined to a little tiny little room, and you just have to dodge bullets and try to take down ads as quickly as possible so that you don't die. There is nothing interesting, with the exception of the Zamboni, which isn't even that interesting, that I think is good about that raid. I think there's the end boss is really disappointing to me. There's just such missed opportunities for all of those different rooms that they've created that have absolutely no purpose. You're still confined to a small room doing, ad takedown, and I just don't. I don't know. I hope that they find another way to create a raid that isn't going to be so bullet spongy, I guess is the word I'm looking for. I don't like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and to Paul Tossi's statement, to his, this is the exact opposite of Bungie's recent raid philosophy of making raids shorter and less mechanically difficult. Honestly, it's not really the exact opposite, because they went Vault of Glass, which was, longer, more in depth, to Crota's, which was just a little run like Wrath, to Kingsfall, which was, again, more in-depth, longer, more jumping puzzles, all that, and back to a short one with Wrath of the Machine. So I don't really see his argument there, but I am 100% hoping that the rumor is correct, that the raids will be bigger, longer, much more interesting in terms of mechanics moving forward, because getting in, I wasn't raiding, unfortunately, in Vault of Glass. I ran it a couple times, but nothing really until I started running Kingsfall with you, RedWingGirl. And to me, it's just such a vastly different experience what we have with this raid compared to Kingsfall, where a year after its release, we were running it on 3 characters every week religiously, and now we don't even touch this raid after 4 months, because there's just really no point. I know we ran it the other day for some friends, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of interest of people to run it that haven't. Where Kingsfall, we did the community raid day because there were so many people that hadn't raided and wanted to run that raid, and I don't see that clamoring of people wanting to do, and maybe it's because this raid's so easy, everyone's been in it and done it. Maybe that's the case, but I just don't see the interest in this raid that I've seen in previous raids. And to Durandal, I would ask you this: did you ever play World of Warcraft or no?
Not for very long.
Okay. Well, in World of Warcraft, one of the things with the raids there is that they'll release a raid, particularly with like Ice Crown Citadel and the Wrath of the Machine, Wrath of the Lich King expansion. They released this raid that had, I think it was 4 different wings, and they released a wing, and then 3-4 weeks later released another wing, and so on and so forth. It wasn't just all at once; the whole thing was open. And when you go into a raid in World of Warcraft and went into that one, your guild would spend the first week, 2 weeks just farming the ads up to a boss, just to get gear off the ads, to get leveled up enough to even try to take on the boss. I don't know that that's where we need to be with Destiny per se, but just wanted to get your idea on your opinion on the idea of if they were to release a raid that was progressive like that, where it was something where a wing of the raid was to the equivalent of like a King's Fall now, and then whereas a couple weeks later they're releasing hard mode currently, a couple weeks later you'd be geared up enough to release the next wing and get to the next set of bosses. I think that would be interesting and something that I would like to see.
Well, I don't know if you guys remember, back with the Vault of Glass, after everyone beat it, however many times, a few weeks later, people started exploring the vault. I would go in there with friends just, looking out, because the areas, you've got these huge expanses in that vault. And people were theorizing, I saw on the forums, a couple people had ideas that maybe there was a hidden boss, maybe that portal all the way at the end, just outside the Atheon boss room, that those platforms onto. Maybe there's a way to open that portal and go fight, a hidden boss for the 7th chest in the Vault of Glass. And I think, like I was going back to what I was saying about that sense of mystery, I think having that kind of interesting little it's not really an Easter egg, but something hidden or something that really catches a player's investment, into the raid. I mean, what was the most interesting thing about Wrath of the Machine? For me personally, it was probably Outbreak Prime, but for Vault of Glass, it was absolutely the exploration and trying to see if there was anything that we just missed completely.
Yeah, I'd love to see raids that were incremental, that had different steps, different weeks. I mean, like I said, I want multiple pathing. I think that would be the best way to keep something interesting long term. And depending on the path, you get different rewards. I mean, how fun would have Wrath of the Machine been if, after the Death Zamboni, going through that room, down into that giant, huge Siva room, or there's those blue floor panels and nothing else. What if there's a puzzle where if you figured that out, you went to a separate spot? You didn't go down into the access chamber. I mean, that's what I want from a raid. I want a raid that isn't solvable, and once you solve it, it's just memory, muscle memory of here's where this comes from, here's where these enemies are, here's what you got to do. I want variety, I want change. I would love if they did a World of Warcraft thing like that, where here's step 1 of the raid. By the way, this is a 5-step raid. I would love that. Now, would I love to have to farm the enemies forever? No. But I think part of the problem with the reason why nobody plays Wrath of the Machine as much right now is because Destiny made it too easy to pass the 400. You don't have to touch the raid to get to the highlight level. I think and I know a lot of people will be mad about this, I think they need to make it back to where the raid and Iron Banner are, and Trials, once they fix Trials, are the high-end endgame content. If you want to be the most you can be, if you want to min-max everything, you have to do those activities.
I agree. With the way the infusion system is right now, there really shouldn't be any complaint that, if you're a PvPer, if you're PvEer, or some combination of the two, there's just so many avenues to get to 400. That was part of the reason why I just stopped playing the raid, because I already hit like 399 before I even stepped into the heroic Wrath of the Machine raid. And I'm not saying that we should be in a situation like in vanilla Destiny where what was the joke? Was it Forever 29?
Yep, that was it. And I was in that boat for a long time.
Yeah, that I don't want it to be that focused into you have to do the raid. There's no other option. But having 2 premier options like Trials or whatever the newest raid is, be the avenues that you need to take to get to 400. And if you don't like the gear, you can always infuse it into anything else. I think that would just be the smart play.
Well, I see there's a difference between ranking up to the highest level and then getting the best gear in the game. And it goes back to what I was talking about with the gear manager. It's, the raid gear and the trials gear should drop the best gear in the game. And so, yes, I might have, Crucible gear on at 400 because it's dropped for me. Well, I guess the highest it's 390, but I've got enough exotics, for example, to rank up all of my gear to 400, and I've ranked up through Iron Banner or the packages or exotic drops, and that's how I got to 400. That's one thing. But to have the highest level gear of raid gear or trials gear, I think that should be the focus on the rewards that you get for doing those harder end game activities. But I don't think that everybody should be precluded from getting to the highest level. And I know that the argument for that is well, if you're not doing the raid, then you don't need the highest level gear. Well, everybody wants to get to the highest level, so I don't have any problem with it. Everybody getting to the highest level. It's just about the best armor or the best guns should come from the end game activities.
And I agree with you there. I didn't clarify myself enough. It's not just enough to be the highest light level. The raid, Iron Banner, because it's end game light level enabled PvP content, and trials. Once they fix trials, those should be your go-to avenues for min-maxing your character. If you want to get that tier 12, or if you get the right artifact, tier 13 character, those are your routes to do it. And I agree with you that those should be the places you get to get that stuff. And then you can get max light level elsewhere, but you're playing the RNG game there.
I would agree with armor, maybe not so much with weapons, because Vault of Glass weapons really eclipsed everything else. The shotgun, Fatebringer, Vision of Confluence, they were just so great that there was literally, as a hand cannon user, I didn't need to switch from Fatebringer. There was no reason to. There was no reason. Everything else was either detrimental or just, not anywhere near as good. And I don't really want the at least for the raid side, I don't mind if trials or whatever the high-end competitive multiplayer thing is. I don't mind if the weapons that drop from that are top-tier competitive multiplayer weapons. I think that those two things should go hand in hand. But as for PvE, I really hope they don't make weapons that just totally eclipse your vendor stock or other things that you can get around the game.
See, as a PvE player, primarily, I completely disagree with that. I primarily use raid weapons now on everything, except for PvP. And I was thankful that this raid actually dropped weapons that were worth using over just the standard weaponry that you get from packages and drops and etc. I just recently bought the Palindrome again because it has a lot of good perks on it, and it's great for PvP, but for PvE, I want the best weapons to drop for PvE. And when Vault of Glass came along and I got the Vex, I didn't play PvP at all. And that's where the most complaints came from, where people were complaining about getting killed too quickly from the Vex in PvP. So they had to nerf the raid weapon, for God's sakes, because of a PvP player. Well, go out and play the raid then and get the weapon, and then, you can compete against it. That was kind of my thoughts on it. I think that all of the best weapons should drop from all of the endgame activities, and it was a real shame that we lost that with the Taken King. I thought the Taken King weapons were really not. I thought they were mediocre. I thought there was a lot better weapons out there that outplayed the raid weapons. So I kind of disagree with that philosophy. I mean, I just think that the endgame weapons, like Trials, has the best PvP weapons. I think at minimum, the raids should drop the very best PvE weapons.
That point I could agree with, but based on history, as soon as people found Verdict in Vault of Glass, I think that's what it was called in the shotgun, it just immediately took over multiplayer. It had ridiculous range. It had great impact. I think it could roll with it was Final Round, and it just completely dominated. And it was the same thing with the Vex Mythoclast. I got that, I think it was 3 days before they nerfed it, and I took it into PvE. And literally the only counter to it was like another Vex Mythoclast, and that sort of gameplay isn't fun, and that's a lot of the problems I have with some of the exotic weapons in game currently, or some of the legendaries. But I don't think the counter should be, hey, if you don't like getting killed by Vex Mythoclast, then go get one yourself to fight it. I think that's just gonna really cause some problems amongst the community.
I agree, and I was saying that off the cuff, but the reality is that I could go into, we just played a couple of games last week of Supremacy, and I took the Vex in and crushed with it. And it's an exotic weapon, and people still can use it in regular Crucible, and the weapon is still really good. But there's two sides to the argument. Do you want the exotic to be exotic? Do you want it to outplay other guns because it is exotic and it's a super great weapon? Or do you want it to compete against legendaries and expect it to perform lower because it should be competitive against a legendary? It's an exotic, and I kind of felt like, well, it should outplay in most scenarios because of its. Because it was a raid weapon and it's an exotic, and I always kind of felt like it should, rise above everything else, just like the Gallahorn did. But I would never bring the Fatebringer in PvP. I never felt the Fatebringer was competitive in PvP, but that was a legendary.
Well, I got a couple things on what both of you are saying, and to RedWingGirl, what you just said regarding Vex, and it was an exotic, and that, to me, there's a lot of talk about, a lot of posts make exotics exotic. You see that a lot on the forums, and it's what you're saying. It seemed like in year one, the point of an exotic, they were good, and you had to choose. where you wanted that advantage. Do you want that advantage from exotic on your primary spot, on your secondary spot, on your heavy? Did you want to be someone that rolled Truth or Galahorn, or did you want to run a Vex Mythoclass? And going to that, I think the heavy ammo nerf really affected things there with lowering that choice and putting it more of a choice of special or primary and taking that away on the heavies. But that's a whole nother can of worms there. But again, with your armor, you have one exotic spot. Where do you want to use that advantage? And to what you're saying, Synge, I understand a lot of people feel that, the only counter to a Vex was a Vex, but the way I looked at it, and I know this is, my perspective and people view the game differently. When I went into the Crucible the first time, was probably level, 6 or 7, and immediately realized that, the first thing I realized was, holy shit, I'm using my gun that I was just using in PvE. Because I was going in expecting to be, like Halo, where we're using generic loadouts, white weapons. And when I saw I was using my own weapon, I was like, well, I need to go get better fucking guns and, wait till I have them and come back in here, which I did. I went and played and, got a Cryptic Dragon Legendary to drop and whatever else I got, and then went back and started PvPing. Suros, got a Suros and whatnot. And so my experience was, when I went up against a Vex Mythoclast, everyone said it's this unstoppable weapon. Well, yeah, I might be, outgunned, but my gun still kills. But I have this Guardian that's got, lightning grenades, that's got Fist of Havoc, that's got whatever secondary abilities. And I just always looked at it as on me to maximize everything in my repertoire to counter someone that had me outgunned. And I don't think that that's a popular view, but that's just the way I saw it. It's a challenge. Vex is a great weapon. If I want it, I should go out and run the raid and try to get it. But if I don't have it, then it's on me to try to figure out how to counter it. One of RedWingGirl's favorite weapons in year 1 was Red Death. Red Death, to me, hands down, you can say Vex Mythoclass, you can say Thorn, you can say the last word, you can say whatever you want. To me, the most challenging weapon to face in this game in year 1 for me was Red Death. And it was just absolutely a beast. But it was a challenge facing someone that had it, and you had to, when you saw that there was someone using a Red Death, okay, I need to fucking really have my game together this match, and I need to be smart about my positioning, how I use my abilities, how I run my character. And I don't think there's enough personal accountability in how we go into situations and try to counter when we are outgunned, because I think there should be a challenge, and the fact that we grind for weapons and have our own weapons, you're going to be outgunned at some point. Someone's going to have something better than you, and so you need to figure out how to overcome and beat them using the full suite, which we have a full suite of things at our disposal in this game. And one other thing that I will say is, in my opinion, the only thing that is OP in this game is after we die, and it puts up the little symbol with the name of what killed us up in the box. I think that is the only thing that's OP in this game. I think if they did not do that and they didn't show us what we died to each time, that we wouldn't have the issues that we have with balance complaints in this game.
Yeah,
I agree with that 100%, because just last year, does everybody remember what the bane of PvP was last year? Doctrine of Passing. Everybody hated it. Everybody wanted it. Everybody tried to use it. I never got one, never had one. What I got was a Hakan's Hatchet auto rifle. Love that thing, and I could I'm a medium, lower end PvP player, but I like playing it with my friends. Every time we went up against people using Vision of Confluence, I'd immediately switch to Hakan's Hatchet, and I would shut that person down the rest of the match. It's just, sometimes there's a gun that everybody thinks is great until someone realizes there's something that that can counter it, and you just gotta play around, experiment, and use it. And I still hold on to that auto rifle for that very reason, because not the fastest firing, but it had every stability perk you could have on a gun at once. I love that thing.
Yeah, I agree with what you guys are saying, and I do think there should be more of a not direct counters to different weapon types, but play style counters. There, when you're running a fast firing assault rifle, and this goes back to like their whole update to kind of fine tune range. You should expect to a scout rifle, if you're staying at range from that Doctrine of Passing guy, there's nothing he can do. Unless he can switch to a sniper really quick and get you, a scout rifle in that instance is going to outplay a fast-firing auto rifle. And it goes back to that whole gameplay style. When I was running Thorn back in year 1, before they buffed it, it was I think it was the second exotic I ever got, just like the day that Vault of Glass opened up. And I leveled up as fast as I could, and the play style for that was, I think, drastically different than any other hand cannon. Most hand cannons you can kind of run and gun. They reacted pretty fast. Thorn was sluggish. The reload was slow. The handling was slow. It had crazy kick. There were only 6 rounds in the magazine. But the way you initially had to play with it was you had to be a little bit more thoughtful with your encounters with other players, and you had to kind of, I would say, and play at range. But with certain weapons, when Doctrine was king, I had a Doctrine of Passing, the Adept version. I think it was Persistence, and after I got that first Trials flawless run, I started running that for every single one, because it was just at close range. It was just completely dominant, and unless you had a shotgun with God roll range to one-shot me at a distance, or I guess another counter would be Last Word. It could put off enough rounds fast enough to keep up with it. But for the most part, it became so available to players and so quickly that it just really was adopted quite fast, and it just really, it started a witch hunt for fast fire rate auto rifles. But I can't really say that there's always a direct counter for every single weapon in the game. And I really hope that they, like I was saying, that they kind of focus more on playstyle for each weapon type.
Well, there was a discussion that I was participating on the forums last week about different play styles, and one of the things that always kind of bothered me about PvP is that I feel like it's not one against one. It's really a team against a team, and having different class, or having different abilities and guardians with different classes. If people would focus more on using those together along with different type of weapons, I think the matches themselves would be a little bit more interesting, and there wouldn't be so much focus on specific gun types and metas and things like that. There's other games that, for example, encourage those types of builds, like with medics and other types of supers, or however you want to call them. And really in Destiny, we don't really do that. It's really your loadout, your gun, your kind of gameplay. And even if you're on a team, you're still sort of doing you. You might work or coordinate together as a team, but you're not really coordinating your supers too much. I always thought the bubble golden gun thing was one of the best things I've ever seen, because that was a true sort of group of guardians that were actually using each other to be almost unstoppable. And then as people experienced that, they found ways to combat that, and that encouraged coordination within the other side of the group. And I kind of hope in D2 that there's a little bit more focus on us as individuals working together with our supers to have promote better gameplay. And I kind of feel that way about the guns too. Like, close range guns might be good for whatever, and then you have the snipers and that might be sitting off at the distance covering your team or whatever, and I don't really see a lot of that too much in PvP play, and I kind of hope that happens in D2.
Well, I mean, Bungie tries to encourage that, but the player base doesn't want it. I mean, look at every time they change Iron Banner from something other than Clash. The community blows up. Oh, it's Rift. We hate Rift. I don't want to work with people. I can't do Rift. When it's Control, people still complain about Control because they don't want to team up with anybody. They don't want to work with others. I mean, we have people 3 years in who don't have anybody on their friends list yet. Everybody I play with now, weekly, I met randomly.
Well, that's very interesting what you just said, because going to the community response to Rift, the community response to Supremacy, I think a large function of that was their design choice to make the chat opt-in instead of opt-out. And the fact that, they say it's so punishing if you're not on a fire team. Well, yeah, it's punishing because the fire teams are all there and they're talking together and they're coordinating. Well, what's kind of foobar about Destiny is that even if you're in a group of 6 randoms going up against a fire team of 4, 5, or 6, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be able to still work together and coordinate in a game mode like Rift or a game mode like Supremacy. The problem is that no one on that team of randoms are in any kind of chat together. And again, it goes back to Bungie's design philosophy of making us opt into that, which, I'm always opted into chat when I play solo, and I could probably count on one hand the amount of times in 2.5 years playing Destiny that I've heard other people talk in a PvP match. I mean, it's that rare that someone else is there with the mic on. And, for all this game does, and all the, I know we've praised it on its ability to be a social experience, to bring people together, the friendships you build, it has just been incredible for me. The meeting RedWingGirl just completely changed everything in this game for me, going in and being not running as a solo player and having fire teams to run with and experiencing this game in a whole new way. But it's not intrinsic to the game itself. The forums are actually probably the most social aspect of the game itself when it comes to meeting people. And so in Destiny 2, I would hope, and I know what Halo 2 and Halo 3 were. I know, how nasty the chat was in those matches, pre-match and after matches, where you could talk with the other teams and whatnot, and just even within teams sometimes. But it's one thing to want to protect us from ourselves, but at some point, it takes away from the game. And to be able to go in and play this game, if it was opt-out, if we went into a PvP match of Rift as a random, and we were automatically put in chat unless we opted out with the rest of a team, how different would this game be, communication-wise and accessibility-wise?
I don't know if it would be any different. I mean, for a long time, I've stopped doing it because of the frustration. For a long time, I was a Sherpa for raids. I would take people through, I would show them everything down to the tiniest detail on here's how we get you through this, here's how you do this, here's how you do, if you're this person, this person, or this person, here's how you do these different things. I couldn't tell you how many times I was in groups with people who refused to use a mic. They're like, well, I don't have a mic, I'm not going to use it. It's like, well, we can't communicate that. I can't stop in the middle of a raid to type out to stop and read your response on another screen to a question or a command I'm giving out during the raid. It's the community fundamentally needs to change before something like that will have a positive effect.
Yeah, I think not using your microphone to communicate is more of a that's in every game. That's in every game. That's a weird gamer like a social thing that gamers just don't do. And there's really a game like Destiny where you've got, like RedWingGirl was saying, she mentioned a healer earlier. You know, if there was a healer, you know, there's a little bit more reason. There's incentive to actually communicate with that person. You know, and it goes back to what I was saying about utility. I think if they had, you know, subclasses that had more utility, like, does anybody here play Warframe?
I do. I have.
Yeah. So there's a Warframe named Trinity in the game, and all of her abilities, all 4 of her abilities, are utility 100% of the way. She doesn't have any abilities that deal damage or anything like that. It's either regenerating someone's energy so they can use their abilities, or healing them. You know, and I think when you have a gameplay that's so focused into that, you really want to be able to communicate with that person. You know, you want to coordinate with them so that you're getting the most out of your abilities and theirs. And there's just no gameplay incentive to really talk to people right now, I don't think.
Well, I think it would, you know, I'm not opposed to having proximity chat in the tower. I mean, I've sat in the tower and randomly texted people and asked them, you know, do you want to do a nightfall, or do you want to join in a raid or something like that? I mean, I've actually done that. And, you know, how much easier would it be if I could just, like, walk up to them within their proximity and say, hey, do you want to join a raid? Of course there's going to be abuses, but you know, you just shut it off. If they gave us the option of shutting it off, that's one thing, but there isn't any option. So the idea is to have options. It's just like matchmaking. Everything should be optional. And it's just, you know, they say, well, for the raid, you know, it has to be a fire team made, and I agree. Everybody should be able to communicate. You should go into a raid with expectations of everybody's ability and being able to work with them. And you know, that's true with any LFG that you sign into. You know, when you go in and you ask people, you know, I need a Titan, for example, for King's Fall or whatever. I mean, I never was big on that kind of stuff, but some people are, and that's fine. But you know, you should be able to talk to people in some of the social areas. I think in all the patrol areas, and especially in the tower, I think we should have the option to communicate. All of the big games have that, and I don't understand why they're so resistant in Destiny to have it. I think it would really open up the option to meet random people and eventually become friends with them if you get along and build fire teams. And I don't really understand why they don't do that. I'm hoping in D2 they have proximity chat, but I doubt it.
That's one of the coolest features in the Division, being able to approach somebody in the dark zone, and then they've got the little sound waves that appear above their head. You can tell that they're talking. And you got to get closer to hear what they're saying. But proximity chat in that is really, in the dark zone anyway, is one of the ways you will survive. You know, it improves your gameplay to be able to communicate with somebody.
Well, I think one of the reasons Destiny didn't do that was resource limitations. I mean, that takes up a lot of bandwidth. It takes up a lot of resources, and with the peer-to-peer structure of Destiny, a lot of people just wouldn't be able to make that work well enough to have put it in this game, especially when they were trying to run it on PS3s.
To that, I could see that just because of how just crappy the fire team chat is compared to being in party chat on, you know, for myself at least, and RedWingGirl Xbox Live. It's just a huge difference. But I still think it has more to do with just the nasty reputation that they had from the Halo days, and how just, you know, I didn't play Reach. I don't know how it was then, but I know Halo 2 and Halo 3, it was pretty nasty in the banner that went back and forth amongst teams. But to your comment, RedWingGirl, that, you know, the proximity chat, and Synge, it's interesting hearing you say that it's something that they do in Division. I did not know that. I haven't played it and heard bits and pieces of it here and there. but that's very interesting that they do have that. But to your comment, RedWingGirl, I agree that there should be they should figure out some way to at least give us an option to opt into trying it in Destiny 2. And then to Durandal, your comments about chirping the raids and people just refusing to use microphones, I would ask, is that because Bungie conditioned people right from day one to not use them? I think if we would have gone into Destiny and there would have been chat features built in from day one, if there would have been, proximity chat in the tower or on patrol, and I've told the story before, I hadn't played, I played World of Warcraft for, since basically Halo 3 pretty much until Destiny release, and Destiny's what got me back into console gaming. And so I got Destiny day one, I put on my headset, I logged in, I went on patrol, I saw people there, running around, and I went up and I kept trying to talk to people and no one's talking. I couldn't figure out what was going on. Why does no one have a headset on? No one's using a mic. Tower, same thing. Why am I just talking to myself here? And then come to realize that, even if people had headsets, they wouldn't have heard me because that's how the game was designed. And so is that you've run into more of a functionality of Bungie conditioning people right from the start that you don't need a headset and mic to play this game? Because, going back to, 2005 when the 360 released, playing games like Perfect Dark or Halo 3, everyone had a headset and microphone. It was so rare to come across people that were just silent and wouldn't talk in those days. And it's so drastically different now. I mean, you play a game like World of Warcraft, everyone's typing to each other and talking, out in the world. But it's because it's intrinsic to those games. And so people just understand that when you're playing it, that you're going to have a mic and you're going to communicate. So again, is that something that's just the gamers today don't communicate, or is it just because of Bungie's design philosophy that people just don't do it?
I think more so today than back in Halo 2 or Halo 3, that gamers just don't communicate. And I was using Warframe as an example to say, there's this incentive to communicate with the person that's playing Trinity, got all this utility. But honestly, and even in Warframe, I've only encountered one other player that openly talked to me, through just in-game chat. You can randomly queue a mission, and then other players can join you in that mission. But I've only heard one other voice ever speak. And I know in console it's not that popular of a game, but from what I understand, even on PC, that's just the state of the social experience in gaming right now. It's just that nobody wants to really talk to anybody. And I don't know if it's so much because of the problems that they had with players, trash talking and just being super disrespectful on those other games. But I always just had the mute button ready to go, so never a problem for me.
Well, in Elder Scrolls, they have proximity chat, and it's just everybody and their mother is talking. I mean, it's almost too many people talking. So I guess it's probably just the game. Maybe it's just more or less the game. But I would just think at least in the social areas, especially the tower, you should be able to talk. It doesn't make any sense otherwise. But, if you load into a random fire team for a strike, it should default to open communication. It should be a setup, to close it at the very minimum. But they have it just the opposite. So they encourage no talking, and then if you want to talk, then it's an option. It's just the opposite.
Yeah, I think it depends on the environment, because, like you were saying, I think the tower, while it would be nice to be able to have proximity chat and communicate with random players, because of how you've only got a limited number of slots that players can occupy within any given tower, connecting to other players, but it's still a very the tower is large enough that I don't think the density of players next to each other would be an issue with noise communication. But I think that's part of the reason why in the Division, proximity chat exists within the Dark Zone because there's only so many players within the Dark Zone at any given moment, and that's per server. And then the Dark Zone's so huge that you're not having all this excess noise from 18 players around you talking all at the same time. You're running into maybe one or two other players, and one at a time most of the time, where they're talking to you. Very rarely do I run into a full squad that isn't in a party chat. There's unless they're there specifically to just talk shit and just really just dog on you for being a solo player or something like that. They're in a party chat. They're communicating privately.
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of both with Destiny. Could it be that some people were conditioned to not do it? Yeah, but with this is anecdotal evidence, but with the people I've come up against, they just don't want to talk. They don't want to communicate. These are also some of the same people I've had to kick out of raid groups because they didn't feel that they had to take part in the raid to finish the raid. I think there's something wrong in some ways with some of the people who've migrated to Destiny. They want it to be a solo player game and still do all the multiplayer content while playing solo.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that.
So another topic that I know we've kind of broached a side of it with Durandal. You bring up trials, and if they ever fix trials, is just the amount of cheating that goes on in Destiny at this point in time. Does anybody think that we will see they'll maybe go dedicated servers, or do we think P2P is what we have and will have for Destiny, and hopefully Bungie figures out ways to clean up that system?
I don't think I'd be surprised if next E3, hopefully they'll be showing off Destiny 2 there. I wouldn't be surprised if they said, hey, we're gonna have dedicated servers. After the move to the new generation of console only, the game's functioning a little bit better. I think they would. I know that would be beneficial to them and beneficial to us as player base, but I could see it happening.
I definitely think we're going to get dedicated servers with Destiny 2, especially if we get a PC version. Because if you do peer-to-peer over PC with a game, it's exponentially worse. There's so many more problems that could come about. So I think if we hear that PC's coming, we're going to get dedicated servers.
And that is another big speculation point. I know it was rumored before, and again, that was when we were talking the rumors earlier, that Destiny 2 will be coming to PC. And I hadn't thought of it from that aspect, but that makes sense too. If you're having it on PC as well as console, to go dedicated. We're at the point in the program where I would like to get to everyone's favorite Destiny moments from playing this game the last week or so. So start with you, Synge. What has been your favorite moment playing Destiny?
Recently, some friends of mine, we try to play trials every weekend. We're not always able to, but at this point, we play trials for the competitive spirit of it. The higher end multiplayer, and we're all pretty good. But it's always fun to try to drag one of our friends along who maybe isn't so good. And I won't name names just so people don't go find them like, oh, Synge1080 said you sucked. But having a player with us finally get to the lighthouse, for the first time ever since Trials has even been a thing. I think that was a pretty high point. He had a lot of fun. He wasn't, like I said, he's not the greatest player, and it was difficult, but that moment of that relief and that ecstatic nature that you have when you hit the lighthouse for the first time, it was probably the most memorable moment this past week in Destiny.
Well, it's very nice that you just didn't kick him to the curb and say, "Get good, scrub."
I mean, I might joke about kicking him, and I'm sure one of my other friends has done it just to mess with him. But
what about you, Durandal?
It'd probably have to be a Crucible match. Me and some of my friends were playing together. We were just getting some weekly bounties worked on, and someone came up behind a couple of them, like charging around with their shotgun, shot them, killed them, and started like teabagging and dancing on them. I was right around the corner behind the guy, so I just calmly walked up behind him, pulled out my sidearm, and just unloaded in his head and danced on his corpse. And then a bunch of his teammates came running, and I ran away, lived to fight another day.
Yeah, the ending the teabag is always a classic moment in Destiny.
Or dab. Gotta love the dab.
What about you, RedWingGirl?
Well, I was pretty happy to finally get the full set of snow glare armor for my Titan, so for me that was the highlight. I've been trying to get that for a long time. So I was pretty happy about that. And I finally got the helmet for my Warlock, for my Queen's stuff, so I got a lot of good pieces this time that I haven't been getting lately. I've been getting a lot of repeats. So I had some good armor drops this week.
I believe you had another drop the other day as well.
Oh yeah, I got the icebreaker too. Finally.
Wasn't that the same day you got the snow glare, within like an hour of each other?
Yeah, I think so. I was so happy. Finally got the icebreaker back.
Yep, and you used it a little bit in not just PvE, but PvP as well.
Yeah, I was shocked. I mean, I'm not a sniper at all in PvP, but I brought that gun into PvP, and I was just taking people out left and right, and I couldn't believe it. I'm like, oh my god, this is crazy. Auto aim on that gun is pretty incredible.
I think my favorite thing when you equipped it in that PvP match was just the absolute joy that you expressed when you first started firing it, and just the sound that the gun makes, and how that affected you, and how happy you were just having that and hearing that again.
Well, yeah, it's just because it's another memory from the early days that you like to relive in some way, you know. I mean, when we were playing last week in Supremacy, and I took the Vex in there, I mean, I hadn't used the Vex in a while, and I just went in there with the Vex, and I was just taking people out left and right. It was just ridiculous, and I like to use those kinds of weapons occasionally because it just brings back the initial excitement that you had when you got those guns, you know. And so, you know, getting the icebreaker again was just, the sound of the icebreaker is so unique. But I will have to say, the whole regeneration on the ammo thing is kind of crappy. You know, each time you die, you lose all of your ammo, and you have to sort of wait till that regenerates, and that sometimes takes a while. So it kind of makes the gun hard to use. I stopped using it because of that reason.
I'm a little jealous that you have that. It was the first exotic I ever got from the night Vault of Glass opened up, the Gorgon chest. That was my original baby, icebreaker. But besides its shortcomings, I am quite jealous.
Yeah, it'll drop. I didn't think it was going to drop for me either, but it finally did, and you know, I say that, I say, oh, it'll drop for you, but, you know, I had a friend that didn't get the Gallahorn until 2 weeks before they nerfed it, and or a week before they nerfed it, and, you know, he played as much as I did. We did the raids every single week on all 3 characters, and I just couldn't believe that he was not getting it. So, you know, hopefully the RNG favors you.
One can hope, but classic Destiny, my odds aren't very good. I mean, I still don't have a Necrochasm. That still hasn't dropped for me. So if that's any sign.
Well, I have to be honest. Because I rotate my weapons quite a bit when I play. I use so many different types of weapons, but with the exception of auto rifles, I don't really use. And I got a couple auto rifles recently, and one of them was the Shadow Price. And I got unbelievable great perks on this gun, and I was melting people in PvP with this gun too. And every time I read the forums and I see so many people complaining about how auto rifles are bad and Red Death is bad, and that's just has not been my experience. If I get a gun that has really good perks on it or really good rolls on it, if this particular auto rifle that I got is just it reminded me a lot of the auto rifle that you got last year that we were just talking about, and for some reason the name escapes me.
Hawkins Hatchet, possibly?
No, not Hawkins. The other one, the Doctrine.
The Doctrine.
Oh, Doctrine. Gotcha.
Yeah. And I just, it's a great auto rifle. It's probably the first auto rifle that I've ever gotten that I feel like actually could compete. And it will be really good for Supremacy. Because I feel like auto rifles do really well, or fast firing guns do really well in Supremacy because of the closeness that you need to get within those types of games. And then the other guns that I've been getting, a lot of really good guns are Ill Will. I've gotten some great rolls on Ill Wills that have been dropping a lot for me. So I don't know if I'm just getting really good RNG or if it's just that because I use so many different guns and I really pay attention to the perks now that it's been really hard for me to give up some of these guns because they really have been good. And like even with Red Death, I mean, I took Red Death in, we were playing Clash last week or whatever, and I was playing strictly with Red Death, and I was taking people out left and right with Red Death. And it's again, I guess it's just a perception issue, but people think that there's the meta, but I was countering meta with the Red Death like I always used to because I used to really use Red Death a lot, and I was taking them out first. And so I don't know if it's just, people are calling for balancing, and I know I'm kind of getting off topic, but I really think some of these guns are still really good. It just takes a lot of practice and getting comfortable with the type of how they fire and how you have to use them in what situation. And anyway, I'm going on. So, Souls, what was your favorite moment?
Well, no, I agree with that, and I was actually having a conversation with someone on the forums today, Lord Kilron, I believe, regarding Hopscotch Pilgrim, and just I think it's a very bossy weapon. They don't think it can compete with the Clever Dragon archetype, but I just see it. You have to be more precise. Was my take on it, but everyone's gonna have their different takes on it. But yeah, you do have some good RNG on your rolls that you get, though. I mean, your grasp, phenomenal. That Shadow Price you got, oh my god. I've gotten 2 or 3. I had one drop right after you got it, like an hour later. Nothing compared to the one that dropped for you. Your Ill Will, I had one drop the other day, and man, you get some bossy rolls on your weapons. So I think it's pretty cool, though. It's pretty, especially because you like switching up so much. So it's cool that you get such good weapons to use. But my favorite moment of this week was being on the other end of those bossy weapons the last 2 days.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, so I know you weren't on last week with your birthday, but the episode before we had gone out at the end of the episode talking about the third and doing the private matches with the SRL, which we have not done yet. So we'll have to see who can come out on top there. But we went and you took us to private PvP matches, and we ran Supremacy, Rift, and was it Clash, the other one that we ran?
Oh yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and so I haven't played 1 vs. 1 PvP since back in the Halo 2 days. Once Halo 3 came out, Xbox 360, everything was online and playing on Xbox Live. before that, just my friends would come over and we'd just sit there and just maybe one friend or a couple friends, and a lot of times just two of us just sitting there playing 1v1. And like I said, I hadn't done it since then. And just to go and play that 1v1 against you was, oh my God, it was probably the most fun I've had in Destiny, I would say. I mean, just absolute blast and just a riot. And we don't have to talk about the score of the games, do we?
No, we don't have to talk about it.
I want detail.
I want a
I
couple.
kicked his ass almost every game. I don't understand how I'm such a crappy PvP player, and you're better than me. I think you're better than me, and I was kicking your ass. What's up with that?
It's the unpredictability.
All I know is that Arcblade was dirty pool. I was letting in the dogs, and I turn around, and I'm getting blade danced. I don't know what was going on there.
Oh,
Whatever.
No. Did you have Shinobu's Vow? That what was going on?
No, I had a super, and I was going to use it. And his excuses of he wasn't there is BS. I wanted to go in and test some weapons. That was primarily what we originally went in there for, because I just bought the palindrome, and I wanted to see how effective it was against my ill will. And that gun is just unbelievably OP. I was two-shotting him, headshots, and he would be down. And from quite a bit of range, I was really surprised how far away I was killing him. So really, it wasn't so much my gameplay, it was the gun, I think.
Yeah, that palindrome was amazing. And yeah, I don't know how many times I got two-shotted with it when we were playing, but it was phenomenal. But I did win a Rift match versus RedWingGirl, so that to me was like the equivalent of a couple victories, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, you got me really good on that one game.
But yeah, it was a blast. We played. I know it was my Titan the first time we played it, and then on my Warlock. But yeah, and the other really good moment was I was on my Warlock, and we were playing. Oh, we played Elimination as well.
Oh yeah, Elimination. That was what we were playing. Not Clash, Elimination. Elimination was really fun because it doesn't really matter. It's just like Clash anyway, but it still gives you the whole Shaxx talk about, well, you're the only one on your team now, Guardian, get your shit together and, save your whatever, and just hearing the whole, because it shows you the individual score just like it does in Elimination, so it was kind of interesting to see it from that perspective. It was pretty fun. I actually liked it.
Yeah, and I was using the self-res, and I popped my self-res. We were playing on Firebase Delphi, and I thought I had her, and she popped her Hammer of Soul, and that was the end of my self-res. So that was a classic moment.
Shut you down, huh?
With a vengeance.
Yeah, I think the private matches, they're actually really interesting to play. I mean, if you have a bunch of friends together, it's fun to go and play against each other, or whatever, to just kind of break up the monotony. But just to play 1v1 is a lot of fun. Plus the fact that you can test weapons and, how your radar are, just like little things that you don't really focus on when you're playing an actual game, I think is interesting playing 1v1. I'm really grateful that they have that option to play.
Yeah, it enabled me to figure out that Shinobu's Vow increases damage on those skip grenades. I didn't realize that until my friend demonstrated that for me, and results were not pleasant for me.
Yeah, skip grenades are bossy. I think they're, outside of Fusion, probably the bossiest grenades in the game. But yeah, it's one more thing that since year one of this game that Bungie has listened to us and heard us, say it's something we want, and they've put it in this game. And we hadn't really gone in there and taken advantage of it. We went in there a little bit when it released to find the ghosts and whatnot, but to go in and be able to experience that 1v1 play again for the first time since Halo 2 was really incredible, and it was such a neat thing. And again, it's just something in this game that is there that is really, really great. And just hopefully in D2, you know, the things like the optional matchmaking for everything, the things like the being able to change our characters, you know, the bigger worlds, whatever, you know, hopefully everything that people discuss on the forums that they want this game to be, things we talk about here each week on the podcast, hopefully they take this all in, and you know, we see even more in Destiny 2 from what we want Destiny to be. Crickets.
Okay, bye.
Well, I would like to thank everyone for being here today. RedWingGirl, it was wonderful having you back this week.
Okay. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I'm glad to be back. It's always interesting to talk to people from the forums.
And Synge and Durandal, it's been awesome having you on. It's really cool to have you here in this setting and to get to talk Destiny with you, get to know a little bit about you, and hear your thoughts on this game, and really appreciate both of you coming on today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's just another thing I can add to the list of things that I probably would have never done if it weren't for Destiny. So it's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Hopefully people don't rail too much against me after this episode, so we'll see. And as my final note, registration for Extra Life 2017 is open, people. Go register. Heal kids.
Yep, I hope everyone does do that. RedWingGirl, I know, again, that you talked about it, and it's something that I always wish, you know, when you've told the stories of it, that I could be a part of that. So, you know, I don't know if it's something that you'll have going on, but yeah, I think that's a really awesome thing. I think all the charity things that go on through Destiny, you know, I know the streamers did a big thing recently and raised a lot of money, and I just think it's really cool. And the way people have been able to use this game and gaming in general for positive change in this world is pretty cool. So I would like to thank everyone out there listening. Really appreciate your support of this podcast. Everyone that participates on the forums. Look forward to hearing your thoughts on everything we've discussed today. And anyone that would like to join us here and talk Destiny, you know, again, get in touch with us, because we'd like to have you on, and we'd like to hear your thoughts on this game. So I hope everyone has a wonderful night. We'll see you next week.
Okay, bye.